The day my own son asked me to leave my own house, I finally understood that some people don't stop seeing you as family. They start seeing you as something they can use. I was sitting on the sofa, folding clean towels, enjoying the quiet afternoon. It was one of those peaceful moments that don't last very long. Then I heard heavy footsteps. A second later, my son Ethan walked into the living room. His face looked serious, almost cold. Right behind him came his wife, Vanessa. Her arms were crossed, and she wore a smile that never reached her eyes. For a moment, I simply looked at them. This was my home. I had lived here for more than 30 years. Every wall held a memory. Every room reminded me of my late husband. Yet somehow, the two people standing in front of me made me feel like I was the visitor. It started years earlier, with one simple word that I refused to say. Yes. People often think families fall apart because of one big fight. The truth is much quieter than that. Most families break apart one small moment at a time. A little disappointment here, a little resentment there. Before anyone notices, love slowly turns into blame. Looking back now, I can clearly see where everything started. It happened almost 15 years before Ethan demanded my house. He was 22 years old, full of confidence and big dreams. One Saturday morning, he came to see me carrying a folder packed with papers. His face was glowing with excitement. "Mom," he said, "this is going to change our lives." I smiled and invited him to sit down. For nearly an hour, he explained his business idea. At least, he tried to. Every few minutes, the plans seemed to change. One moment, he wanted to open a company. The next, he wanted to invest in someone else's project. Then he started talking about quick profits and guaranteed success. The more he explained, the less I understood. When he finally finished, he looked at me with hopeful eyes. "I just need one thing." I already knew what was coming. "I need you to invest your savings." He named the amount. It was almost everything I had spent years putting away. Money I had earned by working overtime. Money meant for my retirement. Money my late husband and I had carefully saved together. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I asked him simple questions. Who would manage the business? What experience did they have? What would happen if things went wrong? Every answer felt uncertain. Nothing sounded planned. It all depended on hope. I loved my son more than anything. But love isn't the same as blind trust. Finally, I looked at him and spoke as gently as I could. "Ethan, I believe in you, but I can't risk my retirement on something that isn't ready." For a moment, he simply stared at me. Then his smile disappeared. "So, you don't believe in me?" His words caught me by surprise. "That's not what I said." "It is exactly what you said." His voice became louder. "If you trusted me, you'd help me." I tried explaining that believing in someone didn't mean agreeing with every decision they made. But he wasn't listening anymore. To him, my answer wasn't careful. It was betrayal. He left my house angry that afternoon. For weeks, he barely answered my phone calls. Then I started hearing things from relatives. "Ethan says you crushed his dream. He told us you care more about money than your own son. You should have supported him." Nobody asked why I had refused. Nobody wanted to hear my side. Months later, the business failed before it even opened. Several people who had invested their money lost almost everything. One of Ethan's friends had to sell his car. Another borrowed money just to pay rent. When I heard the news, I didn't feel happy. I felt relieved. Not because Ethan had failed, because I hadn't allowed him to take my future down with him. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. Something changed inside Ethan after that. Every time I disagreed with him, he remembered that first no. Every boundary I set became another reason for him to believe I didn't support him. Years passed. He eventually recovered financially and found a stable job. I hoped life had taught him an important lesson. Instead, it seemed to teach him something else. He started believing that anyone who questioned him was standing in his way. Then one day, he introduced me to the woman he wanted to marry. Vanessa walked into my house carrying expensive handbags, designer shoes, and enough confidence to fill every room. She was friendly, very friendly, almost too friendly. She complimented everything she saw, my curtains, my garden, even the old clock hanging in the hallway. It felt rehearsed. Still, I welcomed her kindly. I wanted Ethan to be happy. Over the next few months, we met many times. I listened more than I spoke, and little by little, I noticed small things that made me uncomfortable. Vanessa loved talking about expensive vacations, luxury cars, designer clothes, big houses. But whenever someone asked how she paid for those things, she quickly changed the subject. One evening during dinner, she proudly showed us pictures of a brand new sports car. "It was impossible to say no," she laughed. "It was worth every penny." I smiled politely. "It's beautiful," I said. "I just hope it doesn't become a heavy financial burden." That was all I said. One simple sentence. Nothing rude, nothing insulting. But Vanessa's smile disappeared. She laughed awkwardly and changed the subject. Later that night, Ethan called me. "You embarrassed her." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I complimented the car. "You judged her." I simply said it was expensive. Exactly. That conversation lasted less than 5 minutes, but it marked the beginning of something much bigger. From that day forward, Vanessa stopped seeing me as Ethan's mother. She started seeing me as someone standing between them and the life they wanted. And before long, she found a way to make Ethan see me the same way. I thought refusing money had created the distance between us. I had no idea the next request they would make wouldn't be about cash at all. It would be about something far more valuable than money. As time went by, I stopped trying to convince Ethan that I meant well. Every conversation seemed to end the same way. If I agreed with him, everything was fine. If I questioned him, I became the problem. After he married Vanessa, things changed even faster. At first, they only visited on weekends. Then it became several times a week. Soon after, they asked if they could stay just for a little while. Their apartment lease was ending, and they said they needed a few months to save money before buying a home. It sounded reasonable. After all, Ethan was my son. Of course I wanted to help. I welcomed them into my house with open arms. I believed they would treat it with the same respect I always had. For the first few weeks, everything felt normal. We shared dinners. We laughed together. Sometimes I even believed I had worried for nothing. But little by little, the atmosphere inside the house began to change. Vanessa started making decisions without asking me. She rearranged furniture because she thought it looked better. She replaced family photos with modern decorations. One afternoon, I walked into the living room and noticed a picture of my late husband had disappeared. I searched the shelves until I finally found it inside a storage box in the garage. When I asked Vanessa about it, she smiled. I was just updating the room. Updating. That single word hurt more than she probably realized. To her, it was just another decoration. To me, it was 35 years of memories. I quietly placed the picture back where it belonged. She didn't argue, but I noticed the look she gave me. It wasn't anger. It was annoyance. As if I had interrupted her plans. A few weeks later, Ethan brought up another subject during dinner. "Mom," he said casually, "I've been thinking about the house." I looked up from my plate. "What about it?" "I talked to a friend who works in real estate." I nodded, waiting. "He said it might be smart to put my name on the property." I frowned. "Why?" "It could make paperwork easier later." Vanessa quickly joined the conversation. "And it would save everyone a lot of trouble in the future." Everything about their explanation sounded too smooth, too prepared. They made it seem like a simple favor, just a signature, nothing more. Still, something inside me felt uneasy. "I'd like to speak with my lawyer first," I replied. The room became quiet. Vanessa's smile faded for only a second before returning. "Of course," she said sweetly. "We're only trying to help." The next morning, I met with my lawyer. He carefully listened while I explained everything. Then he looked directly at me. "Don't sign anything." I blinked. "Why?" "Because once another person's name is added to your property, your rights can change in ways most people don't expect." He explained every possibility. Some were small, others could completely change ownership in the future. When I left his office, I already knew my answer. That evening, Ethan asked what the lawyer had said. "I've decided to keep the house in my own name." His face immediately tightened. "You don't trust me?" I sighed quietly. "This isn't about trust." "Then what is it about?" "It's about protecting something your father and I worked our whole lives to build." Vanessa pushed her chair back. "So we're good enough to live here, but not good enough to share ownership?" I looked at her calmly. Living here and owning this home are two different things. She laughed, but there wasn't any humor in it. "I think you're afraid of letting go." "No," I answered softly. "I'm simply being careful." Neither of them spoke for the rest of dinner. Later that night, I overheard voices upstairs. They thought I was asleep. Vanessa sounded frustrated. "She'll never give us anything." Ethan answered with a tired voice. "I know." "We'll have to find another way." Those words stayed with me long after the house became quiet. Another way. I didn't know exactly what she meant, but I had a feeling it wasn't anything good. From that day forward, I noticed small changes everywhere. Family members who rarely called suddenly stopped calling completely. Relatives became distant. People I had known for years looked at me differently during family gatherings. It was as if someone had quietly rewritten my story while I wasn't looking.
Eventually, I discovered why. Vanessa had been telling everyone that I didn't trust my own son, that I cared more about my house then my family, that I planned to leave Ethan with nothing. Very few people ever asked if those stories were true. Most simply believed what was easier. Because it's much simpler to call someone selfish than to admit they're protecting themselves. Looking back now, I realize something important. The house was never their real goal. It represented security, control, power. If they could convince me to hand over the house, they believed everything else would follow. What they didn't realize was that my late husband had always prepared for difficult days. And years before he passed away, he made one decision that neither Ethan nor Vanessa knew anything about. A decision that would completely change everything. The next time they sat me down at the dinner table, they believed they were about to pressure me into giving them exactly what they wanted. Instead, they unknowingly stepped into a plan that had been waiting for years.